I am Dr. N.Senthil Madasamy, Associate Professor, Computer Science and Engineering. I am going to deliver a topic on introduction about continuous integration for the one credit course DEVOPS technologies. In this session, topics to be covered is continuous integration under Module 1 introduction. At the end of Module 1, the students will be able to explain the basics of version control, CI/CD, and AWS OpenStack VMware for DevOps. At the end of this session, students will be able to describe the introduction about continuous introduction. Continuous integration is a practice that helps developers deliver better software in a more reliable and predictable manner. Let's look into the topics for today's session. We will start today's session by understanding what was traditional integration and its problem. Then we will understand what is continuous integration and look into the benefits of continuous integration. After you understand the benefits of continuous integration, you will understand the requirements for continuous integration system and tools for continuous integration. Now let's get started with the first topic for today's session. That is additional integration. Each developer gets a copy of the code from the central repository with the starting point is none other than the latest stable version of the application. Now all the developers begin with same starting point and work on adding new features or fixing bugs. So each and every developer makes a progress by working in a team or on their own. Now, what I am talking about each developer is trying to add new feature or is fixing any bug. So all the developers are working simultaneously on the same code. They add or they change classes, methods, and functions and shape the codes to meet their needs. And eventually, they complete the task they were assigned to do. So each and every developer performs these actions and they keep changing the code to fulfill the task that they were assigned to do. So if we just take a step back and look at this entire project, we can see that all the developers working on the project are changing the context for the other developers as they are working on the same source code. So suppose you consider a team of 5 developers. Each one of them is changing the code again and again to just fulfill their features. Now, team finish their task, they copy the code to the central repository. Now, there are two scenarios that can happen at this point. Either the code in the central repository is unchanged or the code in the central repository is changed, right? So considering these two scenarios, you can obviously see that there is a conflict in the source code present between all the developers. So nobody has the same source code. If the developer is working on feature, then he has a particular code and that code is not present with another developer at that particular instant. Now, as you can see that this creates a lot of confusion for handling the source code, right? So, what are the main factors that can make these problems intensive? Suppose there is a big team working on the project, then the integrating the code of each and every developer working on the team becomes difficult, and also more amount of time will be possible. Now, before I tell you what exactly is the continuous integration, let me tell you how it is done. You have to split the entire chunk of codes into segment first. Then you have to keep small segments of this manageable code after you make the changes required. You then have to integrate a segmented code and multiple times per days so that you everybody has that code and then finally adopt a continuous integration methodology to coordinate with your team. Now what exactly is this continuous integration? According to Martin Fowler's formulation, continuous integration is a software development practice where members of the team integrate. They work frequently, usually each person integrates at least daily, leading to multiple integrations per day. Each integration is verified by an automated mean to detect integration errors as quickly as possible. Many teams find that this approach leads to a significantly reduced integration problems. In similar terms, the continuous integration is nothing but practice of continuously integrating the changes made to the project and then testing them accordingly at least on a daily basis or like more frequently. Now automating your build test and deploy processes can alleviate many problems commonly happening on projects. Now, in such situations, having a reliable method of integrating changes more frequently ensure that these errors can be found sooner than later, so that all the problems are solved before anything major happens. So, continuous integration solves the errors very soon and also helps in integrating all the source codes of all the developers and makes changes together. So now that you have understood what continuous integration is, let me tell you the benefits of continuous integration. So starting with the first benefit we have in the list is continuous integration offers reduced integration risk. Now, when I talk about reduced integration risk, often working on projects means like multiple people are working on separate tasks or parts of the code, as I mentioned before. So, suppose a team is building an application and that particular team has 10 developers. So, each and every developer would be responsible for somebody or the functionality of that particular application. Now, the more people, the risk is integration. That's because there's a lot amount of code, and each developer has his own copy of source code with a new implemented change. Now, depending upon how the problem is or how large the team is debugging, and solving those issues can be painful and can potentially mean a lot of changes to the code. So when you integrate all the changes made by all the developers into a single code, then it could need a lot of debugging and could also be a time consuming work. Now integrating daily or even more frequently can help developers to reduce these kinds of problems to a minimum level so that they don't have to debug at a large extent. Now that was first benefit. Now moving on, next benefit we have is continuous integration offers high quality code. In continuous integration, you don't have to worry about the problems and you just have to focus more on the functionality of the code. So obviously when you focus more about the functionality of the code, it results in higher quality products. Next, if you use continuous integration, you will observe that if you commit something that breaks, you and your team will get a notice immediately, and then the problem is fixed then and there before anybody else pulls broken code from the central repository. What I am trying to say is, suppose a developer commits a build into the version control system and there is some error in it, he will be immediately notice that there is some problem with the code and he should immediately fix it before anybody else puts that code. So you can just say that code and version control works to help people integrate much better after that we have. Continuous integration offering reduced friction between the team members. So as it is evident that continuous integration system is an impartial system. That is, it does not offer partial. They do anybody. So if there is any mistake, then that mistake has to be solved. If there is any bug, then it has to be debugged. There is no option lie in such situation. This offers reduced friction between the team members because they know that if there is some problem, they have to solve it without fighting with each other. Also, having different versions of code helps to isolate and trace the bugs efficiently, which makes the work easy for the quality assurance team. So, suppose they have to identify any particular bug, they know how to trace the particular bug and how to solve that bug right. So, this makes the life for testing the people really easy. And last but not least, we have the continuous integration offering less time for deployment. As we all know that deploying projects can be very tedious and time consuming. So automating these projects can be really helpful for the complete team so that the benefits were integration. Now that you know what continuous integration is, what are the benefits of continuous integration? It would obviously draw you to excitement of what are the recommends of continuous integration system. Four basic recommends for the continuous integration system. First recommend is to have the version control system provides a reliable method to centralize and preserve changes made to your project over time. So as I was mentioning it before, if a team of developers work, then everybody can use this version control system to pull the latest available source code so that they can add their new features to build any application or to make any change also if you are using on-site solutions. Another recommend is to have a spare server or a workstation, or at least you should have a virtual machine. After that, if you don't want to mess with any other servers or virtual machines, and then finally, if you opt in for self-hosted variants, then you will need to install one of the available continuous integration tools like Jenkins, TeamCity, Bamboo, etc. These were the four basic recommends for the continuous integration system. Now, as I was telling you in the last point in the previous slide, that there are many continuous integration tools like Jenkins, TeamCity, Bamboo, etc. And others are Buddy, GitLab CI, Circle CI, Travis CI. But out of this, in today's market, the ultimate tool for continuous integration is none other than Jenkins. Jenkins is an open source automation tool written in Java with plugins built for continuous integration. Basically allows the integration of various DevOps stages like the continuous development, continuous testing, continuous integration itself, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring. So as it is everything that the integration is the part of the complete DevOps cycle. So all these stages of DevOps integrate through Jenkins. I summarized the basics of continuous integration, discussed the benefits of continuous integration, explained the requirements of continuous integration and tools for continuous integration. Introducing continuous integration and automated testing into the development process changes the way software is developed from the ground up. It requires effort from all team members and a cultural shift in the organization. I hope you found this video more informative. Session 4 of Module 1 will cover continuous deployment in next video lecture by Mr. R.P. Vijaykanesh, Assistant Professor. Thank you and have a nice day.